Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everyone watching for attending today. We're getting ready to introduce our panel. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Santia Deck, football player, owner and CEO of Tronus, Dan DeLille, inventor and founder of the Push X3, and Sean Moy, inventor of the esports trainer. They're joining me today on our panel for fitness in the IP industry. And I'm going to start off by saying their bios are in the agenda. So if you want to read more about them, you can. You can get information on what they do, who they are, and where they are. And that'll give you the feedback that you're looking for to find out more about our speakers today. But I'm going to start off with Santia. So Santia, you're described as a self-made female athlete who prides herself on disrupting society's oppressive rules. You're a professional football female player, social media influencer, inspiration to young girls. Can you tell us how your fitness routine, your passion, and your dedication turned into a business?
Yes, of course. I think being an athlete, we learn so many life lessons. We learn about perseverance. We learn about how to pick yourself up when you lose and different things like that. So I know that played a big role in me creating my brand and my company, Tronos, because we had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations. Also, being an influencer, you learn the do's and don'ts. So you learn what works, you learn what doesn't work. You learn how to create nothing or something out of nothing, and so many other things that I've learned just being in the influencer world. So when it came time to actually create my own brand, I kind of had a plethora of things that I kind of picked up over the years that literally helped me create a shoe company through social media, which is something that a lot of people can't really fathom because it takes so much. But all the things that I learned prepared me for this moment. And we're still here, and we launched through the pandemic. So that says a little something.
That's extremely impressive. Well, now we're going to turn over to Dan. So Dan, you're a civil engineer, technical author, sports enthusiast, father of three, and an inventor. Can you tell us a little bit more about what led you to this path of innovation and inventorship?
And don't forget husband. My wife allowed me to be here today. So first of all, thank you, Sean, and thanks to Santia and Sean too. What fabulous company to be with. So I've always been someone trying to hustle and create value somewhere else besides typical 9-to-5 work, and especially in the industry of engineering. Which was tough out of school because I worked in engineering and construction litigation, which paid really good and bills hourly. So I put all my effort into those jobs, sometimes 60, 70, 80 hours, but not really for me, and definitely not passive income, and definitely not scalable, i.e. there's only one of me to contribute expert knowledge on something. And then especially when starting a family, that really caused me to realize that I needed more scale. So I read the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, like everyone else. This was a long time ago, but and then some other resources available at the time. And I created a couple books that sell passively through print on demand, some niche websites, and also started working on productization and IP, intellectual property surrounding productization. I actually bought a DVD I was just remembering the other day for a do-it-yourself patent course. I think it was called patentdvd.com. So if anybody on the line recalls that, I'm assuming that domain name is long gone by now. Guy named Andrew Knight, I believe. I may have messed that up, but really nice guy. Anyways, I watched that 1,000 times and then ended up writing my own patent for the first patent using the USPTO database and lots of back and forth with examiners at USPTO. Thank you to them. Since then, I've had others write specifications and claims, and then I review everything, but still get involved in sort of examiner interviews and things like that. So there are a lot of resources out there now, more than ever before, more than I definitely had, including Google patent searches and third-party freelance websites like Upwork and Fiverr, and there's probably more than that. But for PushX3, the fitness device, in my youth, playing lots of sports and working hands-on, sort of labor-intensive jobs like construction left me with some joints and wrist issues in my 20s. I see some people smiling. And perhaps that's familiar to you, but if you sort of push down like that, I have some wrist issues anyways, but I was still very active in physical fitness. So the inspiration for that particular product came from wrist issues and needing to use push-up stands, which allows a straight wrist when you do a push-up. But stands are really bulky and limiting, and especially at the time. And I wanted something compact that I could run with, but that made push-ups more difficult. So really, and more difficult meaning adding to the overall fitness and strength, and hence the original sort of curved bottom push-up that adds instability. So back to you. I believe I answered the question and even more. And again, I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, you covered a ton of resources available from USPTO. We'll get to those later, but at this time, I want to say thank you for that. And I am interested in that 4-hour work week, so I may have to get that book from you. At this time, I want to turn it over to Sean and focus on Sean for a minute. So Sean, you're an entrepreneur, you're an inventor, you're a father, and you work to empower other inventors in your work every day. So you've been featured on America's Big Deal, which appeared on the USA Network. Can you tell us about your background and how you got started with innovation?
Yeah, so thank you. And like Dan, I'm so happy to be a part of this panel and with the colleagues that are on here. I'm just a guy trying to do something extraordinary like everyone out there listening and the colleagues. I say I'm a dreamer whose dreams wouldn't let him sleep, but why sleep when you could be living your dreams, right? So when my son Elijah showed an interest in basketball, we went to the park to practice, but I worked a lot and I did not want him to suffer because of that. So I know what that felt like, so I didn't want him to have that same feeling. And then as I looked around the park, I saw kids were in the same situation, no one there really to work with them and help them. So I asked myself, how can I ensure my son gets quality practice time, not just practice time, but quality practice time, and be able to give him a competitive advantage, even when I wasn't there, because sports camps are expensive. Sending them to that, I had to decide sometimes whether I was going to send them to a camp or pay a bill. Sometime the bill won or lost. Because I wanted to make sure he still stayed competitive and kept up with some of the his colleagues that were playing out there. And that's when the esports trainer was born. So the E in the esports trainer is for Elijah, sports trainer. So he is definitely my why, the reason why I did it. And what it does is it takes the everyday athlete through the process of becoming better by helping them develop muscle memory, right? At a high level, each sport, so it's open to all sports. I'm working on the golf version right now. But each sports version has 3 different levels to it. There is a novice, there is an intermediate, and then there is an expert level. The expert level is you train it so it can train you. For example, like LeBron James, my guy, he has his natural shooting form. I don't want to change that. So what the product does is it records his natural shooting form. And if he deviates from that, then it will talk to him and correct him in real time. So it measures performance, talks in real time, gives immediate results. It slips into a stylish compression sleeve worn on the forearm, speaks 7 different languages. And what I'm also able to do is I'll provide for sleeve customization as well. So I have the sleeve for the training aid, but people can give me their designs and I can also design their own sleeves as well. So over the years, kind of touching base on America's Big Deal, I've been trying to get on Shark Tank for, let's say, maybe 10 seasons, if not more. So I was just searching the internet because I'm always searching the web. Which shows are looking for new people, shows looking for new entrepreneurs, shows looking for new inventors. You got to stay active. You got to stay out there, try to just see try to get in the forefront of that. I came across America's Big Deal. I'm like, let's just see what happens. Of course, Joe Magano was amazing. But let me just see if this is real. So I applied, and within a few months, I did the interview, we did the screen, we did the calls. Next thing you know, I'm on the show. So I would say keep plugging away, always keep searching, because at the beginning of last year, that was not on my radar. By the end of the year, I was on television. So just keep plugging away and keep grinding.
That's an amazing story. And I heard you say LeBron, but I'm going to say Giannis. I'm a Bucks fan. We won't get into that fight here, but hey, I love the story and I love the inspiration from your son and the work doing that. So what I want to talk about next is going into that. You talk about some of your thoughts and processes and inspirations, but I'll start with Santia. What was your biggest fear in the beginning with bringing your product or your idea to the marketplace? What was your largest concern?
I would say being a first in any industry is super scary. So making history, becoming the first female athlete to own a shoe company in itself comes with a lot of different things. So for me, I wanted to make sure that everybody liked my baby, because, we always say like, okay, we can think our baby is so cute and so this and so that, but if everybody else thinks your baby is not cute, is your baby really that cute? So we're just trying to make sure that creating a shoe that is being in an industry where there are so many different shoes. There's so many different types. There's so many different type of companies. We have the big three, which the Nikes, the Adidas, and the Under Armours. We wanted to make sure that we came into the space ready and equipped it with enough knowledge and understanding of how to be different, how to stand out. And we want to make sure that we had enough data from, my social media followers, which were going to be our customers, to make sure that we were actually going to be able to sell this product. So for us, it was about making sure that we did enough research. We understood the market that we're going into so that we didn't get in there. And it was like, okay, what do we do? Like, are we supposed to be here? Are we a good fit? And, having to rethink different things. So we made sure that we did years and years and years and years of research. Me already, again, having the data, because I have, over 2 million followers combined on my social media platforms. We made sure that we understood like where they were from, their household income, if they were sneakerheads, if they liked high tops versus low tops, white shoes versus black shoes. So we made sure that we did all of that research prior to going into this market, because we knew we were going into a space where, first of all, there's already shoes that exist, but being a sneaker company, there's already sneakers that exist. So we had to figure out what was the market missing. And so once we figured that out, which was me being an athlete, me knowing what we need and what we complain about, being comfortable, the shoe's too heavy, I don't want to always have to tie my laces when I'm running to the court or running to the football field. So we made sure that we took all of that away and we put out a product that we pretty much built with our customers. We did polls. We made sure that everybody was involved in the color scheme, even down to the sole. We made sure that everybody was like involved so that when we put it out, we knew it would sell. So for us, again, it was like, will everybody like our baby? And just so that we don't have to ask that question, let's create the baby in front of everybody so that it has everything that everybody needs put together, and boom, here's a perfect baby.
That's a great lesson. And I think the importance of understanding your fear going in up front and being the first. Mm-hmm. And Sean, I think you kind of are the first in your area too. So let's bring it over to you and talk about what were the concerns you had bringing it to the marketplace?
Oh, so for me, it was funding. Going to school, had 2 kids at the time and 2-bedroom apartment, working 7 days a week, pretty much rotating shifts. Yeah, it's a lot going on at that time. So funding, and then wondering if I'm doing the right things, learning how to slice the elephant now. But at that time, what I saw and envisioned with this product, what I wanted to bring to fruition, it was so massive. So at the time, I didn't know how to slice the elephant. So just the sheer impact of what I envisioned in my head was really, really, really overwhelming. So I would say those were the 2 things that were kind of had me up at night.
Absolutely. And when you talk about funding and where to find that funding and knowing what your opportunities are. So that is a big fear for a lot of people that we hear. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you and have you follow up with that if there's something you want to add.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about the product not working. I knew it worked, but I had similar fears to Santia and Sean, trying to understand this huge market and trying to make those slices and really, not having all of the followers that probably Santia had to get that market data. That was it's a big hurdle. So not understanding if people would like it, I think is similar. But my two biggest fears, I think, I typically have are money and getting scammed or cheated. And I think that those probably weigh the most when I think about the fears. There's a lot of fears, but I'm trying to boil it down to just a couple here. But yeah, so money is, it's also my family's money, and I was unaware of how to use other people's money, which eventually brought me to a successful crowdfunding campaign, and also other means of using some other people's money. But but also getting ripped off, which comes in a whole bunch of different forms. I would say, people stealing ideas, but also, people perhaps, using you or taking your money because you're not so familiar with the space. There's a ton of folks that are adjacent to this process, and any one of them, especially when you're a newbie, could potentially lead to some sort of problems, and that's what I feared. So you've got lawyers drafting and computer-aided models and insurance and shipping and logistics costs and molds, and 3D printing was really expensive back then. Not to mention sort of just the business aspect and taxes and things of that nature. But that also led me to USPTO and trying to understand how I can protect not only with patent the product, but also with the name and trademarks. And so, working through all of that and working with USPTO to protect the product itself and the name and the brand was a big relief. So, talk about quelling some of those fears or quelling some of those, nervous feelings. It was great to finally get a granted patent and, a granted trademark and really have that to go forward. So hopefully that answered your question, Sean.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out, Dan does not work for us. He just makes us sound amazing. So thank you, Dan. But you do mention a lot of resources and a lot of things that made you feel safe. And Sean, we talked previously, and you mentioned the importance of your provisional application. And I want to ask you to talk about that, why it was important for you, and starting out with your intellectual property protection with that for your esports trainer using a provisional application.
Okay, so I have a toy story. I found a toy designer to build my prototype. He was out of New York, really nice guy. We spoke, and somewhere along the process, this toy designer fell in love with my idea. And he said, how about we renegotiate a contract? And we did have a contract in place. And I will also kind of add to that, make sure you're getting stuff in writing so you can have something to fall back on. Versus just a handshake or we'll just kind of play it by ear and see what happens later. Get it in writing. So we had a contract, and he asked me, hey, how about instead of you paying me, you just add me to your patent? I respectfully declined. And he said, I wish I would have asked for more money in the beginning. Or I wish I would have just came at you and just said, put me on the patent at the beginning. So I don't say this to impress you, but to impress upon you the importance of protecting yourself at the start and throughout the entire process, like we've been talking about already. For me, I immediately went to the library. I talked about funding earlier, but I didn't make excuses. I made adjustments, right? So went to the library, checked out a few books on patents. I know it's taboo. You're not supposed to be talking about it or doing it on your own, but I did in the same vein as Dan. Went to the library, started writing my provisional patent. I started with the provisional patent, again, slicing that elephant, and then with cost, because it gave me a cheaper opportunity to protect my idea for a year, shop it around to a few people to see what they thought about the idea before I went and got a utility patent. So the provisional patent is a great tool that you can use. We can all use to help protect that idea for a year. If you decide to move forward, it retros back to that original date that you filed that utility or that provisional patent. So I think that was great for me. And I tell every small business, again, there are things you can do. And I'll just throw it out. Every large business started as a small business. So it's okay to start small and do those things as you grow and scale your business.
Absolutely. And Sean, we didn't talk about this, but I'm curious, how did you learn about a provisional application?
Again, for me, I didn't have all the tools we have now, which is so funny, but I went to the library again, got on the computer at the library, just searched around about patents and what does that look like and what are my opportunities. And again, just going to the website, United States Patent Trademark Office website, learning about it and came across provisional patent. And that's where I started. I mean, it just all fell in line, but definitely people check out the United States Patent and Trademark website. There's a lot of information, great information on there, and go to the library. Check out some books, read up on it.
That's awesome. I really can't emphasize how wonderful this makes me feel that the resources you're finding are available to you, not just from our website, but through communications, and you're emphasizing that. And I want to encourage anybody who's watching this right now that those resources are available to you at uspto.gov. Dan, I'll follow up with you on this question. Is there anything you want to add about protections, or Cynthia, maybe something you want to talk about with your starting out and protecting your product?
Yeah, I did provisional patents for everything as opposed to utility. So the grace period is a year, like Sean mentioned, and really great for sort of getting the idea into the book, so to speak. You can then work on your claims and your specifications and your drawings and all of those things and get them into real succinct language. But the provisional patents, it's a great way. You do have to have the idea. You do have to have some meat on the bone, so to speak, with your idea for a provisional patent. You can't just sort of willy-nilly throw something in there and hope it sticks. But there's definitely a process that helps the inventor here, and I definitely recommend taking advantage of that.
Absolutely. Cynthia, anything you want to add before our next question?
Well, I would say I agree with what both of these gentlemen said. For me, I have two brands. So I have my personal brand, which is Queen of Abs Fitness, and then I have my shoe company, which is Tronos. And I remember having to actually go through a small battle when it came to my trademark, because there was another young lady who was also in the fitness industry whose brand was Queen of Fitness. And so she wanted to kind of go back and forth with me about, hey, I was here first. When they Google like Queen of anything, you pop up before me, and I was here first. So we had to make sure that all the trademarks, did what they do, which is to show proof and different things like that. So we had to make sure that we were protecting ourselves. And me being in the fitness industry, is saturated. So you have to make sure that you're protecting yourself in, your work and your fitness programs and, your social media, even, because it's sometimes a battle of who's going to get this username. Does somebody have my name? And if that's the case, then we might have to go and, go to court about that. So it's just, again, about protection. And I will say this over and over again, make sure that you're protected, get that trademark, get that patent if you can. Because if not, you might end up, years down the road having to go through something that she could have taken care of early in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you. And one other resource we have, and you mentioned the library, Sean, we have our patent and trademark resource centers, which provide training education opportunities as well. So you can always research those in your area. So moving on to our next question, we talked about the importance of protecting, and you're moving into manufacturing while you're still talking about your idea. How did you identify your manufacturers? How did you identify the people you worked with to produce your product, and what was that process like? And we'll start with, we'll go ahead and say Sean on this one to start.
So for me, I just went to Alibaba. I started small. If you connect with someone on there, just make sure you start small, take baby steps. What I did was I found an overseas manufacturer. I sent them what I wanted to do. We signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I sent them a little version. They sent me back the product, and we've been working with each other for about 6-7 years now. So we built up a strong relationship. But again, I would just say if somebody says, hey, I can do this for you and just send us all this money and I want 10,000 units, to start small, slash that elephant, make sure you're getting what you want to get. And because it's not, for me, it definitely wasn't a quick process. You got travel time, logistics, that type of thing when dealing with getting prototypes, things like that. And again, dealing with companies, I had them sign an exclusive agreement. I do make sure that their documents, their government documents are in place, make sure that they are not having any type of issues tied with their government, things like that. In the United States, we have OSHA and things like that. So just make sure they're abiding by government laws and rules, even within the United States. So again, like Cynthia said, you're not in court later on for something. So that's where I started.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I'll turn that over to Cynthia for this one. We'll go to you next, Cynthia.
Sure. So for me, my story is a little bit different. My designer, he actually owned his own shoe company. So, I'm sorry, guys. My dog is at the door. He's like scratching, so excuse the sound in the background. But he owned his own shoe company, and he actually ended up spending 8 years in China. So he did all the due diligence. He made sure that he went to different manufacturers out there. He went to their facility, saw what was happening in the facility, making sure it was clean. The products were, getting to the customers the way that they were supposed to. So we kind of already had someone that had skin in the game so that we knew, okay, this is the best option because, of course, when you have no idea going into the manufacturing world, it's scary because you're like, okay, am I making the right decision? Are they really going to take care of my product? Is it going to get here on time? And all these different things that are happening, when you're new. So for us, him being already in the game, like we just kind of got lucky, and he made sure that we got on the phone call. We did Zooms. We got to actually do like a tour, virtually and everything, so that we knew there wasn't anything crazy going on over there. But it was really connections. It was making sure that we had a really good connection, and he's been amazing for us.
And I think that's really important to talk about those connections. And Dan, I'm going to have you follow up this question and lead into our next question, which is also, you're on your third version of your product. So as you talk about manufacturing, can you talk about why you launched into your third version and how that affected manufacturing for you as well? Yeah,
sure. So I'll answer two questions then. That's great. I think the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about how I started to look for manufacturing is network and connections, and people and just, random, I know this person or this person knows this person, and, where I started is definitely not where I am now, but that has to do with the relationships. And honestly, no idea if I could have got here faster, because a lot of things are built on these relationships. Relationships take time. So when I started, it was a friend of a friend. a guy working out of his house, an industrial engineer who helped me to draft the original drawings for the original provisional patent. And he connected me to someone who drafted drawings for manufacturing or design for manufacturing, DFM, with molds and forms. And then that person connected me to someone that knew how to do 3D printing, which is a bit ubiquitous these days. But back then it was definitely not. And that eventually led me to someone else, and people move around and drop off, and some people aren't the right fit. But I then moved on to Elance, or at the time it was Elance. I think it's Upwork now for drawings and lawyers and websites and things like that for expertise, both inside the U.S. and outside the U.S. But I got lucky a bunch, I think, and with persistence and luck together, that typically makes for a good combo. If I hadn't planned on calling this person out, but Wayne Kin, if you're out there, I think you might be. Just couldn't have done it without you and your team at Jenkins Asia. But really, they've and even through the pandemic, helping with increased costs and helping with looking at different manufacturers for different types of quality issues and better costs and improvisations and optimizations of the way that we were doing our product. Really the idea was to really stick with what the original concept was. So you asked, I'm on the third version. It's really been more than that. Obviously, I mean, everything changes, but the idea was that the patent was broad enough, and so the specifications and the claims were broad enough, and not so narrow that our original patent really covered us in every single way, both the utility patents and the design patents. And so making changes was, it's obviously very difficult to make changes because there's always the adjacent shareholder as you move down the stream. You've got the manufacturing needs to look at it, and then you've got to change the materials, and you've got to change, all of these things. But really, it's the market that is dictating any sort of changes. So the market forced us to change. I actually ended up adding extra strength through our quality control team to make it so that the product could take dynamic loads. We added reinforcement to the mix, and we tested it, and we added softer grips because some of the gyms that were using the product wanted to have softer grips. They were getting slippery with all the sweat, which you don't think about when you're originally doing things. So it's the market. The market really dictates everything that you do with a product, right? So but I owe it to all of the relationships that I've had and still have to this day.
Absolutely. And I think the research and development, the feedback from your customers, and that really kind of helps you develop the product even further. And that kind of leads into our next question, which each of you have a product that's in the fitness and athletic professional industry. How do you get visibility in such a competitive market for your product? And Sean, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, for me, it was just panel groups, kind of like Dan and Cynthia mentioned, social media. I need to get stronger, Cynthia, and camps, sports camps and things like that. And then again, being fortunate to be on TV shows is a way that I've been working to get my product out.
All right. And Dan, I'm going to come over to you.
Repeat the question, Sean.
Same question. It's going to be, how do you get visibility in such a competitive market?
Oh, geez. It's how do you can't have enough visibility, and honestly, I'm not getting the visibility that I want, and I need help. So if any of you are out there that can help, but does anybody have enough marketing or visibility? I think the question's no. I always think of Tesla when this question comes up. I think that they're one of the only companies that does not do marketing. I may be wrong, but we're also all not the richest people in the world. So influencers, platforms like Amazon and eBay, big box stores, things of that nature for online visibility, which have their own spin-off advertising platforms within their online platform. I'm in a few gyms, but not in any big box stores yet. So that sort of shelf visibility is not there, but and I hope to get there at some point. But really it's online, it's social media, it's platforms, and honestly, the patents and trademarks in particular are a huge help with that. So if you want, for instance, your brand name on Twitter or on any of the social media platforms, and somebody else has it or something similar, typically they will ask you for the trademark and the registered trademark, and then also the patents and trademarks and brand names for the bigger platforms like Amazon are required as far as I'm concerned, or as far as my brand is concerned. They want to see that you have a registered trademark. So that's been a big help. But in general, it's trying to get out there. It's doing things like this, and I welcome the opportunity to do that anytime to sort of get the name out there. But yeah, again, I don't think that there's enough marketing that you could ever do for a particular product.
And Cynthia, I'm following up with you because when we talk about visibility, we're going to talk about a lot with you, but how do you get visibility for your product currently? What is it you're doing?
So I would say a large amount of it is social media. We have done so many Facebook ads. We've done cross-promoting, which is pretty much there's another brand, we will promote their brand on our page. There's buying ad space on social media, on different media outlets, such as like the Shade Room or Spiritual World, where they have a really, really large following. So we pretty much just buy, like they charge like, I think $1,000, and then your ad could be up for like 2 to 3 days. But also me being an influencer, I utilize my own platform a lot, of course. But also brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors for us has literally been the catalyst for us to have as much visibility and success online, because we took the likeness of these, athletes, these influencers, these comedians, whoever it may be, and pretty much just said, hey, could you go ahead and promote this product for us? And once they did, we now have their audience. So now their audience is coming to our page and saying, these look kind of nice, so let me go to the website and buy. We also have a brand ambassador program. So our customers actually become our brand ambassadors because now they get a code. So they're getting a percentage of sales that they're making. And, they're also getting free shoes if they hit a certain number. And I talk about this all day, guys. This is like my... but we're also doing pop-up shops. So whenever there's events, we go to pop-up shops and we have our booth there. And then we have our brand ambassadors out there passing our cards and talking about our company to whoever is in the audience. We're also doing billboards as well. So we have billboard space in some of the prominent areas in Atlanta. There's so much I could say, guys, but pretty much I learned how to utilize my platform, other people's platforms, and of course still using old media and old marketing, which is like the billboards and radio ads sometimes if we're going to a new market so that we could have the media come out and cover our actual event, which of course is going to bring more people. And then we're also in some really big stores. So we're in Champs, we're in we're about to be in Foot Locker. We're currently in Athlete's Foot. We're in some smaller stores, but with the smaller stores, even that was strategic because we have to make sure that, okay, how many people in this market, in this area are actually sneakerheads? How many actually wear our types of shoes? Because we could be in a market where they only like Crocs. We don't have Crocs. So it's like, why are we here? So we made sure that we were in markets that it made sense. But I would definitely say those Facebook ads, those will do it. That'll do it for you. Like, it doesn't even matter how much you put in. If you put in $100 a day, you're going to see some type of ROI if you know how to properly, plug in the tags, plug in what you need to plug in. But those Facebook ads will make you pretty wealthy pretty quickly. I'll leave it at that.
Amazing. Yeah, and I want to say congratulations on your recent addition of Athlete's Foot stores.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats.
Very amazing, and congratulations. I am picturing people in Crocs though now playing flag football.
Right, that's exactly what I thought about too.
So I'm glad you're in the right market. Well,
Yeah.
I want to continue with you because we're talking about social media. We're talking about that brand, and you as a person are your brand. So I kind of want to talk about how the Queen Abs Fitness line and you yourself are your brand, and how that affects your experience with marketing and how that works with protecting your trademarks. And you touched on it earlier with protecting your image and your name, but can you elaborate a little bit more about being the brand itself?
Yeah, so when you are the brand, there has to be even more protection because anything that could go wrong with your business could affect not only your business, but also you and your reputation and things like that. So for me, I had to make sure that we had everything in place. We have lawyers, we have attorneys, we have, our trademark, we're currently trying to get the patent and everything as well on some of our new technology that I can't even talk about right now, but it's going to be awesome. So we had to do a lot of research and make sure that we did everything the right way. Everything is professional. We also have some really good mentors that make sure that we also are doing what we need to do. But it's different because also being the brand, being the company, I have to be everywhere. I have to, do all the interviews. I have to do pretty much everything to continue to make make sure that we're out there and we're visible. So it's really about getting as much visibility. So for me, I kind of took on like, okay, even though this is my company, I want to make sure that I'm also the face because that's going to help us. If I already have a platform, if I already have the followers and the customers and they trust me, because it is about trusting. You can have the best product on earth, but if people don't like you as a person, people don't know your story, people don't understand, like, how did you get here? What was the process? Can I relate to you? Is this a brand that I would want to represent because I now know your story? I had to put all of that out there before I could even build Tronos because it would have been such a longer road for us. But because we did all the due diligence, I've been building my brand since I was in college. I'm now 30, so I was 21. So I took a longer road as far as like building up the brand, but I understood, and my mom understood, who's also my manager and the COO as well of Tronos. She understood, okay, once you have a platform, everything else comes pretty easy. Now it's just about, okay, let's create the products that your customers, your fans and followers actually like. Like I touched on earlier, with visibility comes people that are wanting to either steal your product, steal your idea, tarnish your brand, try to somehow become a knockoff version of what you're doing. And so that was kind of what I talked about earlier as far as like I don't want to say her name again, but that person trying to come in and say, hey, like, we don't want you in this space at all. You need to completely change your name because it's too close to mine and you're messing up. Our customers are getting confused, even though that wasn't true. So it's just a lot that comes with that. But I would say if you're protected, you got that trademark, you have that patent, it's nothing anybody can say. But I would say just for everybody out there, just a really quick marketing tip, build your brand first. Build your name, build your story up. get on as many panels or as many speaking engagements or as many IG lives. I know people don't like going live because it's like, okay, I have to actually talk to these people. What do I talk about? But people love knowing who they're buying from. If they buy into you, they're gonna buy into whatever else it is you're doing. So build your brand, get that out there, build a community of people that trust you and want to see you flourish and do well. And then utilize those brand ambassadors. That helps too. Just want to throw those in there.
That's amazing advice for everyone watching. So we are getting close to the end of our session, so I do have our one last question for everyone, and I'll start with Sean on this one. Is there anything in hindsight that you wish you knew when you started this process as becoming an entrepreneur that would have changed what you've done or how you've done things?
For me, I wouldn't say done differently, as I believe we learn our lessons from our experiences, but what I've learned is that the process is part of the promise. That is something I wish I would have learned sooner, to enjoy the process. So right now I'm trying to teach my daughter real fast how to drive, and she wants the car, but not the process of how to drive the car, right? So this is our argument. So for me, enjoy the process. And someone told me that a few years ago, and I didn't really get it, but I understand it now. So again, the promise and what you see at the end line, the process is part of that. It's included. And I'll just kind of close out. So in the spirit of tomorrow, I want to encourage everyone to continue to let your passion cause a reaction. Let your intentions be intentional. Your goals be consistently consistent, and build your brand every single day. Work on something, no matter how small it is. And again, enjoy the process because it is part of the promise.
And Dan, how about you?
Well, I'm still taking notes from Santia and Sean here. So this is thanks for those words, and I think as far as what I would have done differently, that's always a tough question because I'm here now and pretty happy. But I think having a business partner sooner is the first thing that comes to mind. Not only relying on mentors and friends and relationships whom are not really accountable or having sort of skin in the game. And then that in turn, provides accountability for yourself and sort of others, right? So not only that, but having an extra level of expertise. But the biggest part of that is especially having a bigger network. So having that other business partner that opens up the network. We talked before about relationships and networking. It's the biggest part of anything really, I guess, if you ask me. So I think that's it. There's also as far as the things that I would have done differently. I really think that having getting your friends and family involved a little bit more. Although my friends and family were absolutely involved, and I thank everybody that's ever helped me. That's very close to me. But I, for instance, my wife is in the brochure on the product, and we talked a little bit about crowdfunding. I couldn't have done it without very close friends helping out with crowdfunding and sharing things on social media. But I think really opening things up and really asking others to help out, I probably could have done a better job with too.
And Santia, I'm going to let you wrap it up for us before we head out.
Yeah, I think Sean and Dan honestly said everything that I would have said, but I would say also for us finding the perfect fulfillment center sooner, because of course that causes issue when you have issues with that. It took us, some time to find the perfect people, but that's also a trial and tribulations. So I think also patience, because I think we got frustrated pretty early on, okay, why isn't everything happening perfectly and in sync? But we have to remind ourselves we're still a baby. We just hit 2 years, last month actually. So for us, it's just about living in the moment, being appreciative, having gratitude about where we're at, but also making sure that, we're moving forward. So for us, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here today. Jim's on the screen, which means our time is up. But I want to say, I love this line you said, Sean, which is, let your passion cause a reaction. I love that. And I definitely see that in all the work that all of you do. Thank you again, Santia, Dan, Sean. I appreciate your time. And Jen, we'll turn it back over to you.